Hello, how are you today? I'm so excited to be here with you. Today, I want to talk about signs. We want to be led, we want to know what is the right thing to do. But what do we really do? What are we really asking for, expecting, and looking for in the way of signs? We're like, give me a sign, and then a sign comes by. I always think of the story about, the guy was like, "Oh Lord, save me from the flood," and then a police officer drives by and says, "Hey, get in, I'll drive you away." And he's like, "No, no, 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 God is going to save me." And then a little while later, now that the floodwaters have surrounded his house, a guy comes by in a canoe and says, "Come on, get in, and we'll go to safety." And he's like, "No, no, God is going to save me." And then finally, he's sitting on the top of his roof, the water just about to crest over the roof, and a helicopter comes by and drops down a ladder and says, "Climb up and you'll be safe." And he's like, "No, God is going to save me." And then he, of course, dies. And he goes to heaven and he says, "God, why didn't you save me?" And God says, "I sent you a police officer and a boat and a helicopter. What more would you like me to do?" A lot of times with signs, we're not clear what we're asking for. We're not clear when we see them, and we don't really pay attention. We ask for it, but then we don't really look for it. We don't, I think, a lot of times really expect that it's going to happen. We're like, "Oh Lord, show me the way," and then He shows you the way. I think of I was watching it the other day, the movie Bruce Almighty. If you've never seen it, it's so funny. And he's driving down the road and he's like, "Lord, just give me a sign." And it's, there's a big sign, there's a truckload full of signs that are like, "Stop, turn around, don't go that way." And he's like, "Lord, just tell me one little thing." And then another sign flashes. And it's all too often, unfortunately, like that for us, isn't it? We ask for a sign, and then either one, we just flat out forget that we asked for it. And so the sign comes, it's really clear, it's really, plain, but we didn't even remember that we asked for it. So we're not looking expectantly for it. Or we ask for a sign and we don't really believe that it's going to come. Or we ask for a sign, we see the sign, but it's not the one we get. It's not the one we wanted. um, a friend of mine and I were talking a couple weeks ago about the story of Gideon. For those of you that don't know the Bible well enough or aren't familiar with the story of Gideon, I'll tell you just a brief version of it. Gideon basically is hiding in his basement. The Midianites, I think it was, one of those people, have attacked and invaded and are occupying Israel. And Gideon is hiding in his basement, and God comes to him and says, "I want you to form an army and go and defeat the Midianites. I have already ordained that you're going to do this." And Gideon's kind of like, "Yeah, right, okay. And this is really you, Lord. Give me a sign." He's like, "Here's what I want." And now this is one thing that Gideon did do right, and I've many times in sermons given him kind of a little bit of a hard time over it, but he was very specific in his in what he asked for. So first he says, "I'm going to put out this fleece, lamb's wool. I'm going to put it out, and I want and I forget which order this is. I should have looked it up before I came in, but it just came to me to mention to you. And the first time he says, I want the ground to be wet, but the fleece to be dry." And so he wakes up the next morning, and sure enough, the ground's wet and the fleece is dry. And he's like, "All right." And he's like, "Maybe that was too easy, because the ground gets wet every day. So he's like, "Let's do it the other way. I want the fleece to be wet, but the ground to be completely dry." He wakes up the next morning, and the fleece is wet and the ground is completely dry. And so he decides, okay, well, I'll try this out. God said to do it. So I'll see if anybody wants to fight in my army. And he puts out the call, "Let's form an army to go defeat the Midianites." And, you have to understand, the Bible says that there's like 1 million of them or 100,000 of them. Just a whole bunch of guys. Very, very overwhelming force. Um, and Gideon puts out the word, and 10,000 people show up. He's like, "Oh, that's exciting, Lord. This is a really good start. I mean, we'll have to really train these guys and have a really, kind of like laser special forces group in order to beat that many people. But it'll work." And God says no. And Gideon's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, no." He goes, "You need to send most of these. You need to send a bunch of these guys home." Um, and it ends up, whittles it down to just a few hundred people that are, that are in this battle against all of these overwhelming force. And the reason why I bring up Gideon is because of the use of signs and the listening to signs. There's one where, you know, uh, God has him take them out to the river and have them get a drink of water, and then based on the way they drink the water, either keep them or don't keep them. And whether you're talking about the fleece or you're talking about that one or different ones, the thing that we can really learn from Gideon is the really specificness of the sign, saying, hey, if this is really the way you want me to go, make it really clear. I mean, I was even praying the other day just before, I mean, I've been on this great adventure and stuff, and I was like, I feel like I hear what you're saying, Lord, but I need to be really crystal clear exactly where should I go, what should I do, and every step along the way, feel the peace about it. And I said, I need you to put the dots really close together, make it really like pre-kindergarten simple for me so that I know for sure that I'm doing the right thing. And, and it's important that you remember when you ask that kind of request of God. I've always said, be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. And most definitely in this case, that was true. And God began to speak to me and tell me the things that he wanted me to do. And some of them were the leaps of faith that we've talked about over the course of both my journey here to central Kansas, as well as, even just coming to terms with leaving and things like that. But even still, because like I said, I told you I left. I knew I needed to come here to where my mom is, to my uncle's house. And I feel very confident that this is where I'm supposed to be right now. We'll take the next step when or if we're told to take the next step. But this is, it became very clear this is where I needed to go. And I knew from a bunch of different things that came together that I won't go into detail because, we don't have 2-3 hours to have a Facebook Live here. But it became clear that this is where I needed to come first for lots of reasons. And not the least of which is because my mom really needed me, and there's things going on here, and they just really needed to get taken care of. And so, I leapt out on faith. I made that drive. I mean, you have to, those of you that don't understand the drive, some of you are looking back and going, why did he make such a big deal about the fact that he drove? I drive every day. Well, those of you that don't know, prior to this trip, it had probably been 10 years since I had driven more than about an hour in any one setting. So to do days of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of driving or more that I did was, was quite amazing. And you look at the map, and the map says, it's going to take 24 hours to get there. And they act, maps act like you're just going to get behind the wheel of the car. Magically, you won't have to stop for gas or go to the bathroom or anything like that. And then just poof, 24 hours later, you'll be there, right? And that's not really how drives work. You've got to get out and stretch your legs, and a lot of people told me it's like, don't go more than, X, 2 hours was what most people said, before you get out and stretch your legs and stuff like that. And remember to take good breaks and take good care of yourself. And, so then, 24 hours becomes what ended up being the better part of 4 days and 3 hotel stays, for the over 1,500 miles that I've traveled this past week, when I left on Sunday. And I'm so blessed. I feel so grateful that I was able to do it at all. I remember the day I left, I called Mom and told her that I was on the road. And, I told her, I said, I'll be there somewhere between 24 hours and 24 days from now. Because I had only ever driven an hour over the course, in any one setting over the course of the last, several years. I didn't know, for all I knew, I'd make it an hour and I'd have to completely get out of the car, get a hotel room and stay there. And not that I really could afford to do that, but, um, when you leap out on faith, you just kind of let God know where the ground is and teach you how to have wings or build them in flight or whatever. Um, so it was a real leap of faith. And throughout all of it, I was like, God, show me the way, let me know, let me feel your presence. And I spent a lot of time praying for many of you, actually, some of you by name, others of you who I don't know as well. I mentioned you by concept or by, the fact that you are or will be watching this, and that you would be blessed. And I remember, so what night was that? That must have been Monday night. I don't know. Anyway, I was in New Mexico at the time, and it was really beautiful because there was a storm way off, way off in the distance. When you're in the high desert flatlands like that, I had just gone across the Continental Divide, and I could see the lightning flashing and the storm way off in the distance. I love it when you can see that far and you can see, the sky light up like that. And it was still, this was before twilight. It was pretty much the daytime, but, a little grayer because of the storm being out there. And then the most beautiful, amazing thing happened. And I'm going to put a couple of pictures as comments on this. And I'll probably even see if I can get one as the cover photo for, for the YouTube video. And just the most beautiful, most amazing rainbow. Oh my gosh, guys, you just can't even imagine it. In the story of Noah, they talk about the fact that God gave Noah the rainbow as a sign of the covenant that he would never again destroy the world with water, and that when it then did rain, that we could know that, this wasn't going to be the cataclysm of the end of the whole world like it had been, but more so that it was a sign of, God's covenant with us and that he will keep his promises. That you can really know that you're being protected by him, you're held in the palm of his hand, that you're safe and secure. And it was so beautiful. And, first I saw one arch, and then I actually saw at one point two, a double rainbow, which, you almost never get to see. And then another part, I got to see the whole entire arc, like this side, the whole loop, the whole side. It was so beautiful. And I did my best. I was driving, and I'm trying to be careful, and I'm not a real use your phone and driving kind of person, but I did try to, open the camera up and just kind of do this while I'm driving down the road to get you a few pictures, and I'll try to post those for you. And I had to then acknowledge, because I had been asking for really clear, really obvious signs, and I was raised in the church, so, rainbows and things like that are, and the sign of God's promise and his leading and his guidance and all that, are things, from my earliest of childhood. And so to have that experience, I had to then acknowledge, it's like, Lord, thank you for the sign that lets me know that you've got me, that I'm okay, that we are heading and doing and going in the direction that you want us to, and that things are going to be okay, and that there's a hope and a future and promise that you have for us, and you show it to us in the beautiful magnificence of the sky. Now, there's going to be somebody that's going to be like, well, scientifically speaking, rainbows are caused by the, refraction of the light through the prism of the, and I get all that, and I understand the scientific element of it, but, with that same thing said, how many of you saw rainbows that day? How many of you have ever seen a full rainbow? And when you're asking for a sign, do you need Jesus himself to walk up to the door and knock on the door and go, hi, I'm here to pick you up. You asked that God would save you. I'm God here. Let me do, give me some loaves and fishes so I can, multiply them or do something to prove to you that I'm God. Let me recreate a whole new little mini world right here. in the palm of my hand, or I mean, whatever you need in order to believe that it's God. Do you need that in order for that to then be the sign? Or could it just simply be the police officer that stops by and says, hey, let me give you a ride so that you don't get drowned, or a canoe, or a helicopter, or a rainbow? I mean, because the police officer stopping, that's his job. I'm sure he stopped at the next door too. You know, the person in the canoe, that's the nature of who they are as a person. They saw somebody that was in danger and they paddled over to try to help. Same would be true with the person in the helicopter. And again, it might have been the Coast Guard. I mean, at least in the way that I told the story, or stole the story, because I didn't write it. Uh, Maybe it was the Coast Guard that was the helicopter, and again, that's their job. But does it make it any less of a way to not drown and die when something does happen like that? And because we can scientifically explain it, does it make it any less miraculous? I remember, it's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but it's worth it. I remember I saw the original movie, The Da Vinci Code. If and there's a couple of them that, whatever that guy's name was, I saw the movie in theaters, and there was a lot of controversy because of the fact that it was lightly biblically based, and one of the things that they propose in the movie, sorry, massive spoiler alert if you haven't seen the Da Vinci Code yet, that the Holy Grail isn't a cup, but rather it's the lineage of Jesus. It was that he was married to Mary, and that they had a child, and that's the Holy Grail. And that's what they were proposing in the movie. And I came away from it and I was like, for me, it doesn't make Jesus any more special or God any more divine. The fact that if Jesus married somebody, fell in love, married, had children, does that make anything that he did here on this earth any less powerful? It's just like when people get into debates about evolution and creation, and was it exactly 7 days, or is it a day with the Lord is as 1,000 years? Has the world been around 1,000,000 years, or has it been around 10,000, or is it only 5? Or all the debates that we have. In the end, I always come back to saying, either way. And when science brings something out, as far as I'm concerned, it only just proves to prove to show. It's one of the things that, with all the things I could say negative about evolution, one of the things I love about evolution is, Darwin died. He spent his whole entire life as a Christian. And I think that's the piece of evolution that's left out of the teaching of it now, is Darwin was never trying to explain away God. He was trying as a scientist to, with his brain, figure out, okay, how could this have possibly happened scientifically? Fine, God created the earth. He never denied that. Never in all of his life did he ever not believe in creation. He was just purely a scientist trying to say, so let's explain how that process works. And because in his belief set, he felt like it was a process, again, like he said, a day with the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day. In other words, God is not a time-centric being. Therefore, our definition of days is not necessarily, the end-all, be-all. I'm not going to get into a deep theology discussion, with a camera. But the whole concept of it is there was a scientific explanation from his point of view, as best as he could describe it. And that doesn't in any way diminish that at all. And sometimes when I'm talking to people and they talk about, somebody used the phrase the other day that my leap of faith and my believing that God was telling me to leave California and go east to a place that he wasn't going to totally confirm with me until I got off my butt and started heading east, which was true. Um, they were referring it to me throwing bones and reading, the bottom of tea leaves and stuff like that. And I'm like, first of all, let's not diss the people that do that. And second of all, um, I know there's something bigger than me. And so it doesn't diminish me to be able to say something that existed before I exist and will exist long after I do is more powerful and is the one that's in control, not me. And it is empowering to be able to let go and to believe in something greater than me, because I know the times that I've missed it and I've failed. Now, I didn't really mean to come in and preach to you. I just wanted to talk to you about signs and about how amazingly beautiful the rainbow was, and to encourage you that while you're out walking around, doing your stuff, living your life, as we all do, that you will ask for the signs, but then you'll also see them. And that, let's not miss the last part, you'll be thankful for the sign when it comes. Ask for it, believe that it's going to happen, see it when it does, and then be thankful for it. There's so many amazing and great things that you have to do in this world. I'm so grateful for you. So thankful for the little piece that I get to be a part of it. If there's anything I can do to help, whether it be to help you find that up level, because there is, with all the amazing things you do in this world, there's so much more. And I would love to help you discover that. Whether it be that book, we've talked about that many times that you need to get done, or maybe you've already got the book and now you need to know what to do beyond the book so that you can actually start making the money, or any of the things. Let me bring the 50 years of sales and lifetime of marketing experience that I have to bear with you, along with the things that I've been blessed to have talents in, to help you see the possibilities, to see that it isn't a silver lining in a cloud, but rather it's just silver with cotton candy on the side. I hope that you have an amazingly great day, that you have a wonderful weekend. If we don't talk before then, I'll probably be on again this weekend. But if we don't see each other before then, thank you so much for your love, your help, your support, your prayers. Remember to thrive while it's called today, to live thriving and truly free, exceedingly abundantly above all that you can ask or even think. I'm so grateful for you. I so appreciate our time together. Until we're together again the next time, have an amazing, great day and a great week.